Welcome to the Sakura 6-month milestone. It's been in development since late June 2024 by 3 people. We all have full-time jobs, so I'm extremely proud of where we are right now. I'll show you the current state near the end of the video. We'll go through the 6 months chronologically. The current state is a little bit wonky because we just had a big refactor that involved physics, but it would be unfair to celebrate the 6-month milestone showing 7 months of work. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're as excited as I am. The footage you've been seeing in the background is of very early versions. I pitched the project to the team, I got the green light, and since we're committing our precious spare time on a longer term project, it was important to hit the ground running. Plenty of videos were recorded to show the team we're serious and we're making strides. We were motivated and we were exploring ideas with each other. Here I was helping out with making an unlit material for the cards. Here you can see there's a red sun trace, and if it hits any geometry, we are swapping out the card for a unlit variant instead of a lit variant. Now we've introduced the vertical axis and collisions. We can take the ramp and land safely. The card can only rotate around its up axis. This will change very soon. In this clip you can see we also have roll, but that's purely aesthetics. In this clip, we have actual pitch and rolling. The visual roll from before is still present and it doesn't affect the card's performance. We have a lavish track idea where near the end you'll be driving sideways, skidding along this wall. We really want to give physicality to the card and make it feel like you're driving a real vehicle, as real as a hoverkart can be, of course. So we knew we wanted to drive on many surface angles and cheat a little bit by gluing it to a surface. Here you can see that if you drive carefully, you can drive a bit upside down, but you'll easily lose contact if you go too fast. Here you can see some graphical exploration of doing a cel-shaded track. Unfortunately, I'm not a graphics programmer and I'm not about to learn how to replace some important graphics pipelines in Unreal, but I do know my way around the material editor. It wasn't a success, and due to a scope and scale issue, this direction was dropped. Here you can see the prototype red card. Because collisions were going to be simple spheres, I asked to get the card model to fit in a sphere as good as possible. This is the first version. Our artist was on fire, and soon after he dropped some track meshes as well. At this point we were still figuring out how to build a track out of spline meshes, how to set up the collisions. If you look closely, you can still see the rudders that were in the previous card, but they're tiny now. This was a very satisfying day where we got to see some AI driving around the track. They're following the basic spline, they have a relative offset on the x-axis on how they're driving. Their steering is at this point still quite primitive, but it's so good to have them around. Then we had an amazing art pass plus some particles and impact effects that you can now see when the card hits the track. Throughout these 6 months we've been improving the way you have to create tracks. Here you can see that we can change the track type at any point into another track type and the real-time updating of this part. I did an experiment with using Verlet physics. These are some attempts. I did not like how it wouldn't settle, it felt floaty, and it was harder to program actual driving for it. It was a really fun experiment to have flexible underlying implementation while displaying rigid bodies. We dropped the Verlet implementation. We learned quite a bit, but it took too long and I didn't see it go anywhere. We did humor some experiments on making a pod racer. Our artist was really fast in making these meshes for us, but I couldn't get the physics to work right. As I mentioned before, I really wanted to have believable physics, and it turns out I'm not qualified, and it's hard to make something believable. It is easier to fake something and then add everything on a spring, following the fake physics, or perhaps only mildly affecting it. This approach wasn't going to cut it for us, so unfortunately it got dropped. This is the closest I've gotten to having a controllable pod racer. Floaty, slow moving, gooey driving. It wasn't any fun and had no prospects. So, once again, in the bin. At this point I got into sound. I made a video about sound before, so let's just quickly go through it. I've worked on various iterations of the engine noise and tried out different tools and programs in order to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. I went through some asset packs, and this is what I've been able to cobble together. It has this nice method of changing the pitch depending on the state of the card, and it blends different sound effects in order to accomplish this. On top of that, everything's chained into a compressor to make sure that if you have multiple engine sounds, it doesn't blow out the mix. And it's all mixed with some randomized background music. Our artist had commissioned this cart, and it looks great. The track and the cart were coming together. AI is making strides by driving on an optimized racing line. The racing line minimizes the amount of steering needed to complete the track. The less steering you have, the more you go forwards, the more forwards you go, the higher your speed can get. At this point, the carts were not that competent, but that's because they weren't using the boost. I was getting frustrated by source control. We were using Git, and there's no exclusive checkout on binary assets. So my solution was to start working on track 2. It takes place on a rainy metropolis, but one part of the track goes above the clouds, reaching for this grandiose effect. One mechanic that makes us stand out is our U-turn mechanic. It stores off speed to be unleashed after you change your rotation. As a result, you don't have to go below 300 km per hour to make a 90-degree turn. We're still figuring out exactly what kind of kart racer we want to build. The rest of the team didn't really like being airborne too much. Previously, being airborne gave you less friction. Now it's the other way around. And I like that as a result, you do not want to go too fast in this drop, as losing the connection with the ground slows you down to roughly 650 km per hour. But staying grounded will let you reach 825 at peak, without boost. Of course, once we have time trial in place, we can see what racing lines are ideal. Our artist is designing some bespoke meshes to be using in the track. This is an idea he had of having a little bit of a trippy tunnel and a leap of faith at the end. It needs a little bit more love to have it polished, but the idea sells itself. So now let's rewind back to one of the earlier pieces of footage. This was really selling the idea for us. This is when it really clicked and sold the vision. From this point onwards, we knew we just had to keep on chugging on and get to the finish line. It's still a long road ahead of us. We have a lot more to do, but we're hoping to have something playable this year that we can share with the world. We're excited to keep working on it, and honestly, it's a very fun project. It's very stable right now, it's in a good place. We're excited to see where it will go in the next 6 months. Hopefully the next video is going to be even better. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.